Hi there, I'm Angus, co-founder at Flint. This is going to be a hopefully very relaxed, relatively short tutorial video about how to build a lead generation tool on Flint. So Flint is a platform for creating these tools, and we're going to start by assuming you've already created your account and logged in, and we're on the dashboard here. We're going to start by clicking over here to New Tool. So we have a few options, but we're going to start with Describe My Business, where we have an AI onboarding wizard, which will ask us a few questions about the business we're building the tool for, and then it's going to work through and construct a tool for us. So in terms of the tool we're building, we're just going to pick a random use case over here. Wilderness, they do luxury safari experiences. Now you can build Flint tools for loads of different use cases, but agencies tend to be a really nice one because if you have a plethora of services and there's a bit of a disconnect between the pain that your prospects are facing and the value that your services can deliver, you can create a tool that helps to bridge that gap and sort of push them closer to a buying decision. So we're going to give the website, and then it's going to give us a follow-up question. And as you'll see on the right-hand side, as we give more and more information, it starts to build up a better picture of the use case you're building a tool for. So what kind of trip does your team help and plan for? There we go. And it's asked, what's the main travel type you win most with? Okay, I'm now going to whiz through a few more of these questions, just to make this video nice and short. I should note also at this point that this is very different to vibe coding in the sense that we are not generating code off the back of these responses. All of your responses are being used to help the AI piece together a tool using all of the pre-existing components that we have. So we have a huge library of components, and we're going to stitch them together to create the tool. So this question here. Okay, so the AI is happy it's got enough information. We're going to move on to the next step, where here we're going to be defining what questions we are going to be asking the prospect. So the AI has come up with these 6 questions over here, which we can edit if we wish. We can change whether they're a choice, text, slider, date, etc. But for now, we're just going to move forward and go on to the outcome section. So the outcomes is all about defining if you were delivering this piece of value by speaking to a prospect firsthand, what outcomes would you expect the prospect to require? So what information you need to give to them in order for them to move closer towards a buying decision. So we define these outcomes here. So the AI said a recommended destination, a recommended type of safari, a recommended itinerary, some alternatives if in case the recommendation didn't quite hit the spot, and a justification to why that journey is going to be suitable for the prospect. So the outcomes is different to the actual output, but the outcomes is just saying like what is it that we need to be offering to our prospects. So we're going to assume we're all happy with these and move forward. At this point, we could add a knowledge base, quite a cool knowledge base to add here. Actually, I'm going to add one, would be a spiel from a safari guide about the kind of trips that are usually successful with certain types of travelers. So I'm just going to spin that up really quickly in ChatGPT, and then I'm going to put it across as a text input here. Okay, we've added that here. So as you can imagine, the AI is going to reference that knowledge base to inform the responses. And then we're going to move on to the layout section, where we're going to be defining the actual structure of the tool we're building. So are we building a product recommender, a service recommender, a report? So in this case, I would say it's essentially a product recommendation because the Safari company has a number of different products or trips that they offer, and we're trying to point them towards the most relevant one. So we'll go for this. And there's a bunch of different templates we can use. So this one is actually quite nice. We would change it a little bit. I don't think we would show the price, and we could add in some additional sections like if we wanted to add a score about how well a certain trip might match them, or want to put some statistics to try and improve social proof, that kind of thing, or we can add testimonials, etc. But for now, let's just go with the standard product recommender one here. I'm going to load this in. And we can make changes here, but we can do all of that later as well. So I'm just going to pull that across and then move on to the next section where we're defining the AI logic. So this is really the magic of Flint, is we built this system in which we can look at all the questions we're asking, look at the knowledge base that we've uploaded, and look at the actual purpose of the tool itself. We can take those inputs, we can compile them into a prompt, which gets sent to AI, and then we're returning the response, and we're going to render that response for a beautiful results page, which is ultimately the piece of value that you're giving to your prospects. So we'll wait for the AI to do its thing here. Okay, and so the AI has generated 10 outputs, like top pick price, top pick name, etc., etc. And there are a bunch of different ways you can create outputs. I'll show you that later when we get into the editor. But for now, we're just going to show you the basics where we have an overall high-level prompt, and then we are explaining to the AI how we want it to return its response. So we want it to return these very defined constraints or outputs, which we call output variables. So we are now going to ask the AI to put all of this information together, compile it into one nice tool by clicking generate. Okay, so that took a couple of minutes, and now we're going to view the tool. Okay, and so here we are inside the Flint editor. You can see on the left we have landing page, questions, logic, capture, and output page. We're going to go through each of those very quickly. So landing page, this is something you can turn on or off depending on whether you want to embed the tool inside your existing website as an inline embed, or if you want it as a standalone tool that lives on a separate domain, then you can link out to a landing page like this. Landing page is really useful as a way just to kind of manage the expectations of what the prospect is going to get out of this experience. So before you just ask for their details, you're giving them a little bit of information about what's in it for them. So in this case, we've got a hero, an image, a little bit of spiel. By the way, this is all made up for this demo, so it's not actually featured in National Geographic. Some social proof stuff, some FAQs, and another call to action to move forward. So with any of these things, you can make edits here. If we go into, say, this text box section here, you can switch between different layouts. So if we wanted to move this around like that, and different colors and change the padding, etc., etc. If we then go across into questions, we can see we have our 6 questions here. So if we go onto this one, we can see it is a multiple choice question, and these are the different options here. And we've got it selected as single select, but you could change that to multi-select if you wanted, the user to be able to say this, this, and this. And then we've also got a slider example over here, all quite self-explanatory. Then, and for all these things, we can change the theme. So we can make changes here, whether we want to change the font between sans or serif or mono, or all these different things, change the border opacity. And then we can move over to logic, where in this use case, we've got 3 boxes here. So sample data, so there'll always be sample data. We use AI fill just to populate that with some data so that we can then start to test the performance of the tool before we push it live. We then also have a knowledge base. This is the knowledge base we discussed earlier with the Safari guide. And then we have AI logic. So the AI logic is just the high-level prompt here, and then those same output variables that the AI defined earlier. Now we can tweak these if we would like, and I would also just show you a different type of AI logic thing. So if we go here, we could select a collection. So this is for more sophisticated use cases, but you could basically describe what you want here. So list 3 benefits of traveling with family. And then you could obviously ask it to reference the knowledge base, which might be good in this case. And then you can add different fields. So you could say maybe title, explanation, and warning, or something like this. And so as you can imagine, if we go down here, say, okay, this is a really rough example case, but if we just generate the AI summary for this, it's then going to populate this output variable that's not yet been run. And the reason I'm showing you this is collections can be a really useful way for more complicated builds, especially if you're doing a product recommender where you have, let's say you had a Google sheet with 1,000 products on it and you want to have the results page to show 10 of the most relevant products based on someone's inputs. Instead of building 10 different output variables, you can just build it once and then it will render it as a collection. So in this case here, paste that works for families, so a title, explanation, warning, and you've got that 2 more times because we asked for 3 here, but we could change that to 4 and then rerun. And you can see we've now got 4 outputs for that one collection. So as I say, lots of different output variable types you can have here. List is another useful one if you want to have 3 benefits of something, and you can have that as 3 bulleted lists, and you don't only have to create that once, and then you can render it as a bulleted list. I'm just going to delete that one for now. And then we're going to move over to capture, which is very self-explanatory. It's just what do you want to have as the gate between them inputting the responses and waiting for it to be generated. And then just before you show them the results page, we ask for this information here. You can add additional things like terms and conditions and a link to your privacy policy and that kind of thing. And you can actually change the loading headline, so what the loading spinner is saying when you're waiting. And then on the output page, which is probably where all the complexity compiles, is basically how are you going to reference those AI responses in the final results page. So if we look at the results header, this one's very self-explanatory. It's just top badge, which is this bit here, then a headline, and then chosen around your Safari style, which is classic game Safari, and family party. So that's a very straightforward way where we're literally just referencing an input. But then a more sophisticated one would be this content card here, where we're pulling in best fit journey, topic name, topic body, and you can also do it so you have dynamic images. So based on the response, you could render a different image. Group to list, we've got our alternative recommendation, which I can show you here. Alternative tag 1, 2, 3, and then also the call to action button. So putting all of that together, we can preview it over here, or we can just go straight into publishing. So when we want to publish a tool, we click up here, and then there's a few things we can do. First of all, add some privacy policy information. So this just means that when a user is going through and on the terms section it says I continue and I agree to the terms, they'll click on the terms. It comes up with a pop-up which is populated with this information. So rather than you having to write terms for each individual tool, you can just add the information in here and it gets automatically populated. And then if you have a separate privacy policy for your business that you want to include, you can include that here. Also SEO and sharing, we automatically generate metadata for SEO, and also open graph image and a favicon you can add if you like as a uploaded image or as a URL. If you want to embed the site once you've published it, you can either do it as an inline embed, so nice iframe inside your website, or you can have it as a pop-up widget, so either after a delay it appears, or if you click a button it appears, or you can even have a little floating Flint button in the bottom right of your website, and you can click on that and it'll open up the tool. So an ad tracking is another thing we can add here. So if you're using Metapixel ads, you can add the pixel ID in here and get that working with Cappy. So let's hit publish and I'll show you the finished product. Okay, so find your ultimate Safari adventure. Let's move on to the actual tool. I'm going to say we're a family. We're into gorilla trekking. We want to go in June 2027. We want to go for 7 nights. We want a private feel, and we want to see big cats and long morning drives. All of that information is then getting sent to the AI as a compiled prompt with all the information pulled together with the knowledge base, the responses, and the existing prompt that we put. And it's going to then return the responses with the output variables that we've defined in the logic section. Okay, here I'm just going to put in my details. And then we're going to proceed. And here's our results page. So your bespoke Safari shortlist, Gorilla Trek Sanctuary. We can just go forward to the website to explore the package. We can read a little bit about the benefits. See, this looks worse because I've just edited it to be 4 things, but I'll change that to 3 in a second. I'll show you how to do that. And then you could move on forward here. There's loads of cool stuff you can do. You can actually have this call to action button open up an email with pre-populated email that's based on the responses. A couple of other interesting things you can do to make this experience a bit more embedded. But we will go back to the tool. First thing I'm going to do is actually just fix this section here. So we want to change this from 4 to 3. So we're going to go fields, change that to 3. Okay, I'm going to publish those updates. Good stuff. Okay, so if we now look at the outputs page, that'll look much nicer. There we go. Okay, other things to show you is if we go back to the homepage of Flint, we go over to leads, we can see that that session I just did will show us a lead. So we click onto Wilderness Safaris, you can see my details here, and then critically we've got a copy result link. So if I open that up in a new tab, you can see this is a public version of my results page, which I could share with a friend, with a family member, or if you're the tool owner, you can then send this live link to the prospect in a follow-up email as part of a nurture sequence. So as you can imagine, all this information is quite useful for the rest of your marketing process or workflow. So that's why we built an integrations tab where you can hook that up with HubSpot or MailChimp or Slack, or use a webhook to hook up to any other part of your marketing stack, so that information can be automatically moved across. If you're working with MailChimp, you might actually create an output variable on your tool which pre-writes the email based on their responses. So you've kind of got an automated, enriched nurture campaign built with Flint there and ready to go. And we also have, as a sort of additional feature, MCP connection to Claude. So if you do all of your building inside Claude, you can connect Flint to your Claude, and then you can ask it to build tools or make edits to your tools. So hopefully that gives a good walkthrough. We've also got an analytics tab, which this is a demo account, so it's all a bit fudged, but you can see a breakdown of your tools, and that starts to become quite useful when you've got multiple tools running, and you can track the performance of whether a drop-off. So if you notice there's a drop-off at a specific question, maybe that question is a little bit too intrusive to be asking for a prospect in that current stage. So these are just good insights to help you optimize your tools over time. Also, if you have multiple tools running at once, you can do side-by-side comparison to work out which ones are working, which ones require a bit more investment, a bit more tweaking to get them over the line. But hopefully that makes sense, and I'm sure there'll be lots of questions, but I think the best thing to do is just to jump into the builder, start building, see how you get on. If you hit any blockers, then please give me a shout, and I look forward to seeing what you build. Cheers.